Welcome to Women in Electronics, the only show that empowers, develops, advocates, and celebrates the accomplishments and advancement of women in the electronics industry. With your host, Jackie Maddox.
Well, here we are again today with another episode of Women in Electronics Leader in Highlight radio program. Oh, I'm so excited to be here today with our guest, Debbie Conyers, who is one of our founding advisory board members and has been a part of ECIA for quite some time. Debbie, thank you so much for being here today.
It is my pleasure, although you know that I don't like being the center of attention, but I do like to talk about the industry and ECIA. So
great. Well, I know it took me a while, Debbie, to get you. So I'm excited that you're here. Let me just turn it over to you to explain what has your role been at ECIA?
So I was hired back in 2001 to take on a marketing campaign to stress the importance of authorized distribution. I had actually been introduced to Robin Gray. Then it was NEDA, the National Electronic Distributors Association. I was introduced to Robin when he moved the association from Chicago to the Atlanta area. And I had moved to the Atlanta area from LA a few years before and was introduced by a really dear friend of mine, Rob Roden, who was an industry exec and also very involved in NEDA. So at that time in 2000, there wasn't really a fit. But when the marketing campaign came to be, Robin called me, and it was, I do have a marketing background. So that's when I jumped on board, and they just couldn't get rid of me for the next 20 years.
I'm so glad that you stayed, Debbie. And you mentioned NEDA. Let's go back to that, because for some people listening, you know, that just shows kind of some history in the industry. Some people might not know what NEDA is. Do you want to explain that real quick and how this evolved?
Sure. And NEDA was around for years and years. And in 2011, there was a merger of NEDA and ECA, which was a manufacturing association. And at that time, we always had manufacturer members, but at that time, we also brought in rep members. So we now have all three constituents as members of ECIA, but we've still continued the mission, which is, to improve the business environment for the authorized sale of electronic components. So it's always been focused on the authorized, sale. So only authorized distributors, of course, many manufacturers and reps now.
Awesome. And ECIA has done a great job accomplishing that. But we also have, other industry associations. So if we look at, say, ERA, people hear these terms, especially our young people coming into the industry, they hear, ECIA, ERA. What is the difference between you and the ERA for those listening who really don't know much about our associations?
So I'd say that ECIA, which stands for the Electronic Components Industry Association, focuses on the broad industry issues that can be tackled when the three constituents work together to affect change in, whether it's business processes or technical standards for components or, bringing industry stats to the forefront. That's what ECIA focuses on. I'm not really intimately involved in ERA. I know ERA also has members that are reps, distributors, and manufacturers. In my mind, they focus on rep-centric issues, which is, understandable. And they put on, also they put on industry meetings, much like ECIA does, but they focus more on, I'd say, the education for reps versus general industry education. I could be
Very
wrong.
good. Okay. Well, that's kind of how I see it in my mind too. So that it seems to make quite a bit of sense to me. But, I want to ask you a question. So you have this perspective in the industry. It's actually kind of a bird's eye view of the industry because of working with different aspects of the channel. It's connecting a lot of people in various aspects of the channel. So what insights, can you give to us? So, Sear, we've had this change of the industry. We've had change of circumstances. We've had change of so many things, and especially in the breadth of years you've been in the industry. So how do you see us now, Debbie, compared to, say, when you first came in? I know this is a really big question, but like, what would be your insights as to where have we come and kind of where do we need to keep going?
I'd say overall, the industry hasn't changed in the fact that it's a very generous and open industry. I think the fact that these industry leaders have worked together, worked opposed to each other. Yeah, they're competitive. There is a generosity, both in spirit and in funding, that hasn't diminished. In fact, lately for ECIA projects, it's actually increased in terms of generosity. So that's a unique perspective I find that I didn't find in other industries that I've been in before. So the people, it's really about the people, I would say. That's why I stayed for all these years. The fact that there are trade associations that are bringing these industry people together to work on the issues that they are facing has really been interesting to me. So as a sideliner to all of that, it's been fascinating, and the issues keep changing, right? So when I was first hired to do a marketing campaign about authorized distribution, we weren't even calling it authorized then. It was franchised. And I know that term is still out there, but we really focused on calling it authorized because it was an authorization from the manufacturer to the distributor. So now, down the road, we're not as faced with the .com fear that we had back in 2000, 2001. Now it's what are all these other issues that are facing the industry? Certainly this year we've heard supply chain, over and over again, and fascinating to see how people, our members on our councils and boards and committees are working to really research those issues and come up with some solutions for some things that have been around for as long as I've been around. Design registration, educating the next generation, those types of things.
That's awesome. And I agree with you 100%. That's right. Why I stayed in the industry is it's such a relationship industry. And we have amazing people. I really do think, and I agree with you about the generosity. I think it's just a lovely industry. So with that, though, there's some specific things that you have cared about and been passionate about within ECIA. One of the things to make note of is the FIRST robotics. ECIA has come alongside of this with women electronics. We see this as a very viable and a great effort too for our industry. So if you want to just maybe explain that real quick, because I know that that's something you've been very passionate about.
I am. And I think my degree is actually in education, but I never really used it in a teaching environment. So the appeal of FIRST was in educating young people as to what this industry is. I mean, it took me many years of being around someone who was a leader in the industry. I had no clue what he did and what this industry was all about. So the fact that I can go to a FIRST robotics competition, I was representing ECIA and sat at a booth and was giving away different swag items from our members. And these teenagers were coming up and totally got what we did. Right. So, it's an opportunity that any company, whether you're large or small, can find a team through FIRST in your area. And it doesn't take a lot of financial support, not big dollars. Of course, if you've got big dollars, you can do that too. They'll take it. But really on a regional or local level, you can affect change. So a company can look up on the FIRST website and find a team that's right in your zip code and take that on as a challenge. They may need some parts. They may need, $50 for whatever. They may need help in creating a building space. There's a number of levels of involvement. And on a national scale, or actually international scale, because FIRST Robotics, which is the high school level, has over 3,700 teams across the globe. So they're making STEM education fun. These teams are actually like mini businesses. So these students are learning so much. It's not just about how to build a robot and how to make a robot do a certain activity. It is business marketing. It is fundraising. It is community outreach. So all of those are all qualities that every company I've come in contact with are looking for, right? They want people moving into their ranks that have that awareness of what it takes. So I see it as a huge opportunity that our industry should tap into. Here's a ready-made sort of plug and play solution to get involved with your future customers in these students, and actually your current customers, with sponsors like NASA and Boeing and Qualcomm. Show up at a regional event and you've got your local people right there, your customers. And by and large, these students' parents are also involved in different aspects of electronics or tech industries. So it's a wealth of information and contacts that you can tap into.
That's awesome. Well, you could see how your education background, you have the heart for that. So you're bringing that to this component. And I love, we've had conversations about FIRST Robotics, and definitely we agree that as an industry, that's something we should get behind. But also, let's just talk real quick about the training program too, because I know that you were part of that. Again, it's your heart of an educator that has brought so much to the table at ECIA. So can you explain the foundation as well?
Sure. So the ECIA has a foundation, uniquely called the ECIA Foundation. We've been, I'd say, working behind the scenes for years. We have brought college kids to EDS and the executive conference. We've worked, that's the arm of ECIA that works with FIRST Robotics to support teams and also to get our members to donate parts to FIRST to offset some costs. We've worked with Hiring Our Heroes for years. And our current president, Jim Kaplan, really pushed this initiative to get industry training into the hands of all of our member companies. It's not technical training. It is training that would be appropriate for someone being hired as a salesperson or in accounting or in marketing, so that they have a general understanding of what we're doing. So we got a committee of a variety of members, of ECIA members. We got a committee that assembled this year to map out the courses. So we've got 5 courses that, fingers crossed, will be available by the end of the year, that tackle an overview of how the industry works together, just a brief description of different components, terms and definitions, all the acronyms that we use, right? And they mean different things to different constituents. So these are the types of courses that will be available. And I'm happy to say that we have set a goal to raise $500,000 to make this a true ECIA member benefit, meaning we won't need to charge any of our members for any of their hire or any of their employees to take these courses. And we are within $50,000 of reaching that goal. And again, it goes back to the generosity of the companies involved in this industry. I think Jim had a brainstorm back, we started this back in January, and sadly we lost Paul Andrews in, I think it was February. And Jim said why he got together with other manufacturers, TTI suppliers that Paul had been very generous with over the years, and said, let's give back. And we decided to call the industry training the PACE training program, which stands for Paul Andrews Continuous Education. So it was such a huge groundswell of support, especially from that. So we are, grateful and are so excited to bring this educational opportunity to the industry. Very exciting. I've been around for 20 years, and this has been a topic of conversation at probably every board meeting I've attended.
Wow, Debbie. So that's a major accomplishment. Thank you for, writing that out. I know that was something that was really on your heart to do. And again, circling back around, your heart of an educator, your original training came into play at ECIA to helping with several things going on. And we're getting to be time, but I'm just going to ask one more question. So you also, one of the things that you've been involved with as well is women electronics. And so I thank you for that, being somebody foundational in the ECIA organization, but also being a part of women electronics. And if you could just describe real quick, why was that important to you?
It was really important, and such an eye-opening revelation of the number of women that were involved. I've been going to board meetings for 20 years, which are primarily men. I have to say, over the years, there two women stand out. Carla Mart and Diane Sweeney were forceful and didn't necessarily bring the women's perspective, but they just tackle things differently, right? So to sit back and watch that transpire was really terrific. And as much as I was out in the industry, I was always working. So I didn't have a chance to make those relationships like you and I now have, and a number of other women. So it was really exciting to be able to have that opportunity to attend that first meeting and walk in and see all these women, and to be able to tackle issues that I had thought about, but didn't really maybe have the courage to bring up as I was sitting at the table. And I have to say that I'm so proud of the progress that we and you in particular have made. It's been remarkable considering it's only been a few years. Who would have thought? And again, the generosity of the sponsors, the level and the quality of people involved has been fabulous. And I just think it takes it to the next step. It sets the table for many more women to join forces and, really make a change in what's happening out there. It's just a different perspective, right? We work differently.
Yes, men and women work differently, but the magic is us together. And so that's the whole mission of we, and you've worked so well with your male colleagues and us as well. Everybody is part of Women Electronics. So appreciate that you've been here. I want to talk to you further, and I'm so sad we're out of time, Debbie, but you've had a remarkable career. We're sad and happy for you. And then also look forward to, your successor that we will be interviewing here, Stephanie Tierney, shortly. So anyway, thank you, Debbie, for being here. Thank you for all you have done for the industry, truly.
It's been my pleasure. I've gotten so much more back from it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to another episode of Women in Electronics, right here in Orange County's only community radio station, octalkradio.net.